3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
This is Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
Hello! Oh, look, I mean, if anything can go wrong tonight, it's going wrong. There we go. Oh, I'd like to blame the snow, but we haven't had any down here. Hope wherever you are watching from, even in the good old US of A, if you're watching Jim, which I think you will be at some point, you've had it bad. We haven't here, not in this part of the country anyway. The joy of living down south. It costs us twice as much for everything, but we don't always get all the bad weather. It is the weekend roundup. It's back. Make the most of us this week. There won't be one next week because it's the FA Cup, so it'll be 2 weeks to the next one. That's for the benefit of Tom, who I forgot to tell at the start of the show. So hopefully he's made up. If you can tell I'm making this up as I go along, you're probably right. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good night, good day, goodbye, hello. Wherever you are in the world, one of those will apply to you. This is LTIDT from Leicester Till I Die. We are looking back over the weekend's games and the news. Yeah, we have to, I'm afraid. Doesn't get any better, does it? Ipswich picking up points. Wolves well, they're on form since they took over. Thank God for Southampton. That's all I'll say. But this is the weekend review. And it'll be me and Tom looking back at the weekend straight after this. Good evening, Tom.
Hey, Chris, good to see you, mate. It's good that you've got an improv comedian by trade moonlighting as a Premier League expert for tonight, because we've even got the wrong match week on the side, I noticed.
Have I?
We've gone past 16 now, haven't we?
We have indeed. We have indeed. Thank you for pointing out my many, many errors.
I apologise. I should have said before we went on air, but there we go. That's life, isn't it? We're making it up as we go along.
Well, basically, this show, yes, we are, because if I could get anything wrong, it's going wrong at the moment. So, there's no
just like Leicester City, probably, Chris. Just like Leicester. So we're a good host for what is the world we're living in right now, unfortunately, as Leicester fans.
Oh, does it get any worse than this?
Well, it can, to quote Mick McCarthy famously once in a press conference, but hopefully it won't, mate, because hopefully we can see where we're going wrong, but we'll get to it in a minute and we'll break it down for everyone.
I'm sure we will. Shall we start off with the main bits of news?
Sounds good to me. Let's go.
Here we go. Well, let's just go through the matches first of all, because as you can see there, and it does say match week 20 there, Spurs being Spursy, Newcastle top of the form table over the last 6 weeks, smashing it. Bournemouth did us a bit of a favour. JJ having his weekly anomaly and mind miss. Palace, well, Chelsea, I don't know. They looked good at one point. Now they're looking bad again. Are Man City back, or were West Ham that bad? Somebody who was bad, Southampton, Brentford's first away win of the season, and they go and do that. Brighton and Arsenal, a bit of well, 3 draws there, as you can see, and then a couple of Desmonds with Fulham, Ipswich. Well done, Ipswich again. Not pretty, apparently, I believe, but deserving the point. Possibly, as you said earlier, more. And then the match that you watched, and I didn't watch any of yesterday, Liverpool, Manchester United. But let's start with the news. Cassidy, come available. We were linked with him, but he's gone back to Italy, and he's done that through his choice. He chose Torino. He said that's where he wants to go.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, would he really be the instant impact answer we're probably looking for? Or would he be more of a Binotte anyway, Chris? I don't really know. So maybe it's one of those that works out for both. I think for him, in the Premier League, he's going to find it difficult. But I think he's right. If he went to somewhere like Serie A where the game's a little bit slower, I think it would really, make him look twice the player he probably is. Not saying he's bad. He could come in and do a job for us, but hopefully we can attract some better targets, perhaps.
Yes, and like you say, who would we be dropping out of that centre midfield to put him in?
Well, exactly. This is it, isn't it? He'd have to go in the attacking midfield position for my money. I don't think we could play him any deeper than that, and that's a problem, really. I think we need to look more behind him than possibly there, because we've got Binotte and El Khanous who can play that position currently, whereas others we've got a few more question marks, like right back, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you say, he hadn't quite set us alight, had he, when he was with us before? Maybe just starting to come good. We'll never know. But look,
no, I think it's one of those, mate, where it's like, the time of you remember that transfer window where we got in Robert Hoof and we needed that bit of Premier League quality. I think he's a neat nice little player, but he's a bit of a luxury player in some elements, and we haven't got that luxury right now, especially when we move on to your next point about Atlanta moving Godfrey on to Ipswich, who's obviously got Premier League experience. So,
and the funny thing there is that Ben Godfrey again chose Ipswich over us. Well, not whether we actually made an offer, I don't know, but he came out and said, "Nah, I want Ipswich." Once he knew they were interested, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think that says a lot, doesn't it? I think it shows the good vibrations still coming out of Ipswich then when they're really in the same position as us. There's just a bit more of a positive vibe about them, especially if you're a player coming into this sort of a relegation scrap, right? But he's exactly the sort of player they should be going for, because Premier League quality can walk in. I think he'll do a very good job for them. And I think he is a step up for them at centre back. So it's a really good bit of business early in the transfer window for Ipswich. And another reminder, Chris, we need to be looking, I think, in a similar transfer vein in this window. Premier League experience, even if it's on loan, just to give us a bit more quality and understanding of this division right now.
And bloody quick as well, because at the moment there's 2 possibles we've lost. West Ham interested in Dewsbury Hall. This might be Diego's last throw of the dice. Whether they may well loan him out, or they may well keep him for the Conference League as it gets through to the final stages. Although I do have a feeling once you get through to the final stages of any cup competition, the big guns start to come back. Chelsea bought him. They did us a favour with the 30 million because that, and with Enzo's 10, got us out of a PSR situation. I can't see. Can I see him going to West Ham? Yes, I can. Because West Ham will be looking at it and going, "Are there 3 teams worse than us?" And probably there's at least 2 that are. But again, look, we'd love him back. We know we would. But where does he fit in?
Well, this is it. I mean, he's the first name on the list for me that if we can get him in on loan, we should really try to, because there's one thing we know about KDH, and that is if he's here, he will work for Leicester City. There's no questioning, his desire on who's paying his wages or anything else. He'll want Leicester City to stay up like he did, the season past where he was with us in the Championship and he could have gone earlier. But West Ham are a very attractive club because, of course, they've got that London element. With that, there's always a potential to be a big club, overnight, it's a very good investment for any foreign owners to look at London clubs because you've got such a big catchment area. And also, they are a Premier League club that would give him a starting spot in midfield. And it's not far from Chelsea. It's all in London. So I can see it happening. But once again, Chris, it's similar to the Ipswich one. I'd like for us to look at Ben Godfrey. And I hope if we are looking at KDH, we're going to get in there first because it might sway the balance in our favour.
Yeah. Where do you play him, though?
I'd put him alongside Ndidi. I'd have Ndidi as the ball winner, and I would have him as the box-to-box. But you could play him as the attacking mid. You could play him as the attacking mid as well, potentially.
But so you're playing him instead of Winks?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I don't think I've seen enough from Winks, and the problem with Winks is he's not staying fit enough to get a regular run, so we're not getting enough from him regularly. So I think now if we can have an opportunity to streamline that and then bring Winks in as another option for Ndidi, perhaps off the bench, I'd quite like that personally. But there we go.
I'm not sure about that. We will agree to disagree on that because
we could play him attacking mid, maybe though.
Well, I'm going to say to me, he's not a defensive mid. I don't think he can necessarily play up the way that Winks can, or Skip can. I think his better role is that attacking midfield role. But then who are we dropping? Are we dropping El Canus? Are we dropping Buenete? Two players at the moment who are the first two names on the team sheet. So that's the interesting thing when we think, if we're bringing a defender in or bringing a right back in, we know who we're going to drop. It's an obvious, choice.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm not too sure. And if he comes back and he doesn't do well because the team's not doing well, it kind of ruins his legacy, doesn't it, a little bit?
Yeah, I can understand from his perspective why actually a throw up between Leicester and West Ham might be 50-50. It wouldn't just be a certain back to Leicester, despite the past, because like you say, it could be a fresh opportunity, a fresh start. You could put his name there into a club next season if they stay up and they change manager again, which is a very West Ham thing to do. Might go back for European places because that's the sort of club they are. So I can see what he would think there. And I agree with you. I think the attacking mid position can work for him as well. But like you say, I think the difference between him and El Canus and Buenete is that we know with KDH what we're going to get in the Premier League already because we've seen it. With these guys, they're still young, they're still learning. I thought El Canus was one of the better sparks at the weekend, but he's still not at the Premier League level yet. And have we got time right now, Chris, to really give that time when time's running out?
Know what you mean. Sean Dyche, well, the new owners are in at Everton. The new stadium is nearly ready. And after losing to Bournemouth, apparently for the first time, they're actually now admitting that his future is being discussed. Yes. And I've seen a few Everton sites sort of saying like, well, is this the beginning of the end? Now they've come out and said they're discussing the situation. Or is it a slap over the wrist for Sean Dyche? Because, look, you know what you're going to get with Sean Dyche. He is... he's not probably going to keep you up season after season, but is he going to give you that next push? I don't think he is. I don't think he's that sort of... He is the new Sam Allardyce for me.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because he was saying in the post-match press conference about how he's lacking attacking quality, but then they had no shots on target in their game at this weekend. They had one shot on goal, which they put over the crossbar. And the problem is, Chris, is that it's all well and good because they've got a few good draws along the way the last few weeks, like drawing against Arsenal and, things like this, parking the bus, which we tried again against Bournemouth. Yeah. But the problem is that the teams below them now started winning. And all of a sudden you're looking at that table and going, ultimately, they are falling into trouble now, and this strategy might not play out for them. As long as it was working and they were going to come 16th without a worry, I don't see any worry. But now there is a worry because the table's changing very quickly over this Christmas period.
And one or two managers, and probably, I think we just mentioned it, West Ham, one of the more attractive clubs for the likes of Cooper to possibly consider. Although Wolves went completely left field, Southampton went left field and out the door and up the street and caught the train. As you go on. But look, they got stuffed by an average Manchester City side. We know that because we played them the week before and we only got lost 2-0 and probably could again got more out of that. I think it's just the clock's ticking. It's just waiting for the alarm to go off for Pochettino, isn't it? Lopetegui, I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Lopetegui. Yeah, no, I think you're right, Chris. I think
Pochettino, I was trying to say that I was going to get Potter in the job already.
in good news, mate, I don't think many weeks' time you're going to have to say his name anymore. Probably the next time we do a Premier League review show, that'll be the last time you have to even try and attempt to pronunciate it. Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, we'll go through the game when we get to it, but yeah, I mean, they're just not doing what they should be. I mean, ultimately they're delivering less than what they would under David Moyes, which is a big problem for the money they've spent as well. So, but like I say, an attractive club. I can see Potter going in there. I think everyone's kind of is written in the stars a little bit. It'll be a good club for him to go into because it's still a step up from Brighton and not too much of a step back from Chelsea. So yeah, so we'll see how that unfolds. But I think it's true. Him and maybe also Ange at Tottenham are the two on the hot seat right now.
Yeah, I mean it's certainly a step up from Leicester, which is a sad indictment of where we are right now. But very very true. And it's like you say, you know, if you still got somewhere in London having worked for Chelsea, I just think if he turns down too many more jobs, he will become the forgotten man.
Well, that's it, exactly. Yeah, you got to at some point. I mean, it's a big job for him, whatever he takes, Chris, because if he goes into this job, whatever it is, and it doesn't work out like Chelsea, then all of a sudden there's bigger questions, isn't there?
Yes, exactly.
Big decision.
Say a few hellos in the chat. Craig is in. Hiya, Craig. How you doing? Welcome along. Ronald McDonald, good evening. How the devil are you? Ben, hey, Chris and fans, very disappointed with the loss. We badly need 2 defenders. We certainly do. Scott is in. Hi, Scott. How the devil are you? Well, I hope. And he says, so much speculation lately about the war chest Leicester City have to spend. I'm worried because we avoided PSR earlier in the season, but we've just had to put our figures in for the last period. And I don't know how it works because you're putting your figures in at the end of the season and halfway through the season, but there's obviously some relevance to it. So we could still be hit by PSR, possibly not because of the Enzo and KDH money, but we'll wait and see. And do they say bugger this? We're going to go for it, whether we get PSR or not. We're going for it because we need to. It will be an interesting month, January. I'm sure.
You'd hope actually that we'd have such an understanding of it now, Chris, that we haven't got to worry. If we do get another PSR deduction, especially when we've made sacrifices, goodness me, there's going to be uproar.
Yeah. I mean, everybody will obviously get in there and say John Rudkin should have got it right. But, there we go.
How long's a piece of string a little bit with that management board right now?
Well, all I'll say is that my tap was leaking earlier and I blame John Rudkin. So there we go. Right. Playing tonight, Wolves versus Forest. Oh, God. We do need Forest to do us a favour here, don't we? Because if we don't, it's going to be getting that gap is going to be widening, isn't it?
Yeah, we're suddenly looking at a position where we'll need to get back-to-back wins from somewhere, won't we? So it is probably crucial for us. And actually, even a point for Wolves would be a disaster for us. So let's hope Forest really want that Champions League. So come on, Forest, do one for Leicester as well.
Their home form is better, unfortunately, than their away form. But I've got to say, look, when you look at the teams so far that have changed managers, Wolves, Leicester and Southampton, it's certainly Wolves where the gamble's paid off.
It has, yeah. I mean, it's funny because Wolves are the one where you look at the squad on paper and go, actually, in some ways, Gary O'Neill have managed to pull the wool over our eyes probably for a long time. Too many positive comments on this channel from other people, perhaps, Chris. But when you actually have a top manager at the helm, look what's happened. All of a sudden, I'm looking at them going, I could see them just continuing to pick up points and move up the table, unless they lose Cunha, which would be the biggest worry for them. But I don't think it's going to happen.
They are offering him a new deal, apparently, so we will wait and see.
There's some Arsenal rumours, but there we go.
You will see. I think the books have to be... No, the books have gone in, Scott. The books had to be in by the 31st of December.
Yeah.
That as far as I understand it, anyway. But anyway, here we go. We've got to talk about it. Aston Villa 2, Leicester City 1. I've put there Foxy shows signs of improving, but that's not good enough. We can, we can improve and we can improve and improve until we start getting some points. Ipswich have already built a bit of. I know it's only 2 points, but we were above Ipswich at one point. 2 points I want to say here. First of all, it's a double point. A, was Cooper all that bad? And B, is Rude the man to do the job for us? Because we were better under Cooper.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, isn't it? I mean, my theory on this is that I still think it's the right change. I just think we're still stuck in the wrong mindset, which is something we'll go on to the Man United game, which is a big point for Man United this weekend. But we were just still a bit too negative, Chris. I don't think Rude's actually out there telling him, look, we're going to park the bus, but do it better than what Cooper was doing, which is kind of the way it looks at some points. I think there isn't the idea to push more forward and do more positive things with the ball. But I just think where the players are and their heads are right now, and obviously with the experience of struggling a bit, they're not quite confident or positive enough to get that on the pitch, properly. But also, once again, we've got to give Aston Villa a bit of credit because they are a Champions League team nowadays, and actually, without one or two individual mistakes in this game, we might have nicked a point.
I know, but we've got to.
I'm not trying to be too positive. I understand the frustration, but I just wonder if we jump on them now when we've got a big game coming up next against QPR, and it is a big game because we need to actually put in a performance and win a game 3 or 4-0, which we should be, to really show that this is going to go somewhere. But this is why I'm saying now's not the week to jump on them. I know it's difficult. I know it's frustrating. I think that comes in the next couple of weeks, then we can really start going for it. But we need to see more positive attacking play, definitely.
We need goals. We need a striker up front, which Scott says there. I said a few days ago we need more of a target man. If anybody's going to be watching tomorrow, we've called it Let's Talk Leicester. Then it was Chatting City. Now it's City Chat. Now it's what it's going to be called. Short and sweet, a bit like me. And I'm going to be asking the question. And believe it or not, Brad agreed with me on this on the show on the watch along. Is Vardy past it?
Yeah, I saw this on Saturday. I thought actually Brad's comments post match were very nailed onto the head actually, but I'll get into more of that in a minute. But to your question about Jamie Vardy, we're relying on him too much, Chris. That's kind of the problem, really, is that he shouldn't now, at his age, be in the position where we're having to rely on him. The season we won the championship and Kevin Phillips came in and scored a big goal for us at Blackpool, I think it was. If you compare it, Bournemouth, that's it, exactly. We're kind of in that position now with Kevin Phillips is Jamie Vardy, if you see what I mean. We need to have other players around him, which we haven't replaced since Tillemans has gone, and even Soyuncu at the back potentially when that all went Pete Tong. We've not brought in anyone around him to really take the spotlight off him. And that has been part of the problem, Chris, I think. But I do think he is getting to that point, and that's just to be understood, really. It's quite, expected.
Yeah. I've done some figures because I know Kate's not going to agree with me, and I know Craig probably isn't. And I've done some figures which, we are the most shot-shy team in this division. We've got less than half the shots of Manchester City, who are top. We are not producing Premier League stats, and I know the stats don't tell you everything. We know that, but it's what you've got to go on, and it's what a lot of teams do look at with their stats and their analysis people and what have you. When I looked at Jamie Vardy's heat map, he actually was more in the box than I actually gave him credit for. So I'll say that. But he's not producing what we need in the box. His brain mustn't be as quick because he's getting caught out offside so many times. Well, the old Jamie Vardy wouldn't have done that. And when you look at when we did get the break, and we actually did as a team go forward, which we didn't do enough, but when we did, we scored. Who knew? Got the ball in. Yet that time Jamie Vardy was there. that was about the first time. He wasn't keeping up with play. And he's not, yes, he's still fast. I wish I could never run as fast as him when I was 15, let alone, now. But if we don't play him, we play Ayew, who's in his 30s, or we've got Edouard, who's in his 30s. I mean, it's like Derby and Jones United, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. A good comparison to us here would be Ipswich Town, and they've got obviously Liam Delap, who's creating a lot of headlines at the moment for putting in some great work for them. And he is a physical presence as well as being a very good footballer with his feet. He's a very good complete forward, and we definitely lack something like that at Leicester and have done for a long time now. And the way Ipswich have been playing as well, the thing they've got extra on us, which is why they've now gone ahead of us and they're sneaking away, is that they can play a long ball. They do play like we do. They can hold the ball at the back. They can play out from the back. We've got no long ball options at all. We've got no players who've got any sort of physicality up top. They're all smaller players. And we're basically in the same sort of playground as the Bournemouths and the Brightons, but we haven't got the quality anymore, especially with Fatou out. So this is a big problem in that we do need to do something here, Chris, I think. And someone mentioned it in the chat, and I think they're very right. A complete forward, ironically, someone maybe like a Tom Cannon, maybe someone to come in who we can ping the ball up and just have another way out, because we're getting caught too much at the back and giving away silly things like happened to James Justin again.
It is. And look, I didn't score him highly at the weekend in the ratings, but look, it's not his main position. He's being asked to do us a favour. When he's making mistakes like that, is it not worth saying, well, look, let's bring him over to the left where we know he's better, and let's put Chowdhury in that right back position?
Yeah,
I can't believe I'm saying this.
Well, Chowdhury would be the only one, wouldn't he, at the moment?
Yeah, but could he do any worse? No. Costing us the whole game at the moment, Justin is.
Well, this is it, and the problem is those goals a game are costing us points a game, Chris. They're not just goals, because we're not doing anything outside of that to actually win games. So we cannot be making these mistakes right now. He needs to get his decision making better, but for some reason he just seems to be trying to overcompensate a bit at times, and he's overplaying it. He could have just kicked that ball into touch. If he kicked it into touch just up the flank, all the pressure would have been off. But instead, he tried to play out and got us in trouble.
Yeah. Does the panel think we'll be looking at loaning players or potentially going for Bosman? Look, I don't care who it is. We just need, and I know Cooper, and maybe this says a lot about Cooper. At the start of the season, he was saying, I don't want young, inexperienced players. I want experienced players that could possibly get me, keep us up. Well, that's another word. There's a very thin line between experience and old. And like you say, look at what Ipswich are doing. Yeah. So we might be living with Cooper's bad decisions for next 10 years, because if we go down, we ain't coming straight back up again. There's no doubt about that, because we'll be points deducted and everything. I don't think we've got that long left of Vardy. I do think Vardy is definitely past his sell-by date. He should be the guy that comes on with 20 minutes to go. And try and create something. It says, and not Vardy's fault, but it just says how mismanaged this club has been, that we've got nobody in there. Well, we have. Well, there is a good striker that could be a good target man in Tom Cannon, but he's ripping up, the Championship at the moment. All right, everybody says, well, he's not a Premier League player. How do we know? How do we know he's not a Premier League player? He's never played in there.
I was going to say, look at Harry Kane. Remember when Harry Kane was with us on loan in the Championship, and everyone looked at him in the Championship and would have thought he's never going to be a Premier League striker, this boy. No. And look what happened.
Exactly. So, this, well, he's not a Premier League player. How do you know? He can't be doing any worse than the Muppets we've got up front. And I'm sorry, I do include Jamie Vardy in there. He's living on past glories. He does need to I think, well, we haven't got any choice, have we? You know,
No,
uh,
I think a big problem, Chris, is that we're trying to play like I say the style of football, which actually we're the poorer version of it now in the Premier League.
yeah,
Brad brought it up well in the post match. Actually, he said about going 4-4-2 and going long, and stuff like this, like we have done in the past, and being a bit more untraditional in our approach. And
yeah,
it's funny because I throw this at Tottenham quite a lot. I sometimes think Tottenham's biggest failure is they're trying to do what everyone else above them's trying to do, but they're never going to do it as well. So if they
no,
actually want to win something, you need to do something outside the box and different. So the problem we got is that with Rude, we're going to be playing this style of football. Ironically, if we hadn't have gone for Rude, not to say he's the wrong choice, I'm not saying that. We might have had a manager who could have gone 4-4-2 counter, and we might be playing a bit more direct. And ironically, even though we're playing longer, if the ball's not near our goal, there's more pressure on the opposition, even if we're having to win 50-50s. So that is a big interesting point for me here. I wonder if us trying to hold on to this style might be our biggest downfall.
well, it's not doing Southampton much good, is it?
No, exactly.
Ben Scott has said it, and he is quite right that Vardy's MLS team has gone out of business. So he's not there. He's not. He's certainly that's not in his plans because they don't exist anymore. But QPR next week. I have to say, and I think from what you said earlier, we're going to disagree on this, but
I think we are, yeah.
I'm sorry. We know what this squad of players can do. I don't. What are we going to learn by playing Ayew instead of Vardy? What are we going to learn by playing Faze and Akoli instead of Cody and Vestergaard? You know, let's scrap that. Let's put the young players in.
Okay.
Let them have a go. And I keep going back to this, but I'm going to again. But when you look at when we lost to Forest in the FA Cup, the round before that we played Watford, who were a Premier League side, and due to COVID, we had so many players that weren't available. And we played about 4 or 5 youth players in that team, and we beat Watford comfortably. I think it was 3-1, something like that.
Yeah, 4-1. I think
we bring all the big names back against Forest, and what's happened? We get stuffed 4-0, 4-1, whatever it was. I don't particularly. If we get knocked out by QPR, look, I want to win every game. Of course I do. I'm a fan. But if we get knocked out by QPR, I won't be crying because we've got bigger fish to fry this season. So let's put the big boys in against. Let's put the youth team in against some reasonably big boys. And QPR, they might be struggling in the Championship, but they are still a second-tier team. And let's see what they can do. We might be surprised. Ayew instead of Vardy or Edouard or McAteer if he's back. We know what they can do. But we're too scared to drop them because we haven't got a decent squad, and we don't play him. Look, I joke all the time. Wayne Rooney at 16 was knocking goals in the Premier League. If Wayne Rooney had been in Leicester's academy, he'd still be in that academy now because we're going, don't know if he's quite ready. He's not quite old enough yet. For God's sake, Leicester, stop wanking off in the changing rooms. Get these players out there. Let's see what they can do because they can't do any worse than that dross that's out on that field every Saturday. Chris Forrian, News at 10. Dorset.
I think you've sounded off well there, mate. I think there's a lot of truth in what you're saying, and I think that I agree with half of it, and I think the other half of it is I'd like to see certain players have a run out. I'd like to see, for example, Wormleighton if he's available at right back instead of Justin.
Again, youth player, yes,
youth player, because we've heard things about him, so I'd like to see him. I'd like to potentially see Will Alves start. I'd like to see Cartwright if Rude's taking an interest in him. Basically, I'd like to see maybe 1 or 2 of the youth lads start, and then I'd like to see generally a foundation of a team we normally play. And my reason for that is because we need to get them acclimatized to playing for the rest of the season as well. And I just think it's not exactly a heavy schedule for us outside of the Premier League and the FA Cup. I don't see any harm in them at playing this extra game, which they normally have off, and we put out a B team. So I think it's a 50-50 for me, because I'd like to give opportunities to guys who we can't really chuck into the Premier League straight off the bat, because I think that's what stopped Rude playing Cartwright against Newcastle when he was considering it. It's a big step, isn't it? So I'd like to see a bit of both, but I do get what you're saying, mate, and I do get we can kind of throw a load of them in and see how we get on, but we still need to kind of work on a foundation right now, I think, and it's a free shot.
Yes, it is. But again, I've got to say, a lot of players that he may put into that game may not be with us anyway, because there may be fringe players that we offload.
Yeah, this is true. This
So,
is true. Yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
we're saving legs in that way if that's what we want to do. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a mix, isn't it? It's a balance of the two. I mean,
yeah.
it should be Daka starting. It should be McAteer starting. Alves should start
But
probably
we
in the
know
half.
what they can do.
Yeah, but
Alves definitely he should be starting. But McAteer, we know what he can do. Daka, we know what he
yeah,
can't do. You
it's
know,
more because of the manager. It's more because my perception is more because the manager's coming in, still trying to teach his style and still trying to get it down. If we're accepting this is going to be the style, there isn't going to be any more attacking play. I view this as a game where we should have more attacking opportunities because of who we're playing. So we kind of need to use it to explore our attacking game more. And I think by including one or two of those players, like say a Skip or a Sumare, I think that'll be helpful for the overall picture of the Premier League, perhaps.
moving on. Otherwise, we'll be talking about Leicester
Yeah.
all show. A quiz question for you.
Mm.
What team, based on the last 6 games, are in 18th position in the form table?
In the last, well, I'll go with Leicester because we're talking about Leicester, but actually, no, I'll go Aston Villa.
No, Aston Villa are actually in 6th place in the form table.
Oh my word!
Uh, Leicester in 19th.
Right,
Manchester United are in 18th.
I should have seen
Uh,
the link.
you should have seen that coming, shouldn't you? I'm thinking, like, do you know
Yeah,
what game's coming up next? Um,
my
Man
brain's not doing
United.
it.
My brother-in-law's a Man United fan. I was invited round to go and watch Liverpool Man United because my other mate, a joint friend, is a Liverpool fan. Um, uh, to be honest with you, I took my decorations down, and that probably proved more exciting for me. But it looked to be a decent game, 2-2. Man United nearly winning it at the end. If Maguire maybe it had fallen to somebody other than a defender.
Hmm.
But look, I've noticed Gary Neville and all these Man United pundits saying, oh, now we've got something to build on. You've got 1 point. You
Yeah,
held Liverpool to a 2-2 draw. Forest beat Liverpool earlier on in the season. You suddenly aren't looking at this and thinking Amarin is the saviour. I mean, my brother-in-law wants him to go already, for God's sake. But let's keep this in perspective. This isn't the start of something you can build on. This is 1 point.
yeah. Well, that's it exactly. I think if they'd gone into this game and got absolutely hammered, I think they might as well have not left Old Trafford in the bus. Sorry, Anfield in the bus they turned up in. They might as well have left in a hearse because honestly, I think it would have written off their emotional standpoint. Because the problem with Manchester United, like we've been saying for a long time, is them turning up and actually putting in a shift. And I think irrelevant to the result, and I think it's why Gary Neville's got so excited this week. You've got to give them credit because they turned up and they really wanted to perform well against this Liverpool team that is the hardest team in the league right now. So that is a big step forward for Manchester United. And also in the post-match press conferences, it was quite interesting because I watched them all. The narrative was very interesting coming out from them because it was a lot more transparent and honest about their mentality as players and stuff like this. Martinez said it, and I thought that was very interesting because they were owning it, Chris. And I've for a long time I felt Manchester United like to drive around in flash cars. They like to give off this image, but all the time they're a mid-table Premier League team in reality with all this money. And actually to see them humbled and to see them go, no, today we realized we had to do it differently. And it shows probably why Marcus Rashford's not getting a look in either, wasn't even on the bench again, because he's probably not in that same group. So I think credit to Amarin and credit to Manchester United, because even though it's only a point and everyone's probably getting a bit excited, I will say there is some excitement to be born from the fact that it looks like they've learned how to grow a bit as a football club. And this is a big step in that regard.
It is, but look, we know that this means more to Man United fans than the Man City game.
Yeah.
But you can't just produce this sort of form twice a season.
No, no,
And
no.
that's what I'm looking at a Man United. I mean, a Man United team that lost to Forest. All right, they beat Man City again because it was a derby. Lost to Bournemouth, lost to Wolves, lost to Newcastle. you can't just keep, the 4 points they've had in the last 6 games is against Manchester City and against Liverpool. I'm sorry, those aren't the games that will get you back into the Champions League. It's the
No.
games against Leicester, and I know they beat us. It's the games against Brighton, Everton. Those are the games. And I looked at it and thought, all right, yeah, they've done well done. You got a point, but I'm not getting excited for them because I think I think it's 1 point does not make a brilliant season and turn the season around. And if their season was to be turned around, you don't think it's just going to be papering over the cracks?
Well, it can be a little bit. I think this is one of those where it depends what Manchester United turn up next week. If they turn up and then they go and lose and don't put any effort in, like they have done in previous games, then this was all worth nothing, and it was all a load of huff and puff, and it was only a point at the end of it, like you say. But the reality is, Chris, if they're looking over their shoulders, because if they don't pull something out here and they walk into that ego trap of being so ignorant about their own position of where they are, they could be looking at a disaster, an utter disaster, because outside of Wolves and that behind them, there's not many teams that have performed that bad, really. So it is like you say, it's not a case of this fixes everything. I think for me, it just highlights and fixes a smaller problem which has been hanging around the background of Manchester United for many years. And like we say, if they maintain it from here and build from this point, then I think they'll be on the right path. But it's going to take more than this season, Chris. It's not an overnight job.
No, only 7 points clear of Ipswich. I think the only saving grace for Manchester United is there are 3 worse teams than them in the division. So I don't think they will look over the shoulder, but I don't think they're going to be in any danger of going down purely because Southampton, us, and one other team are so bloody awful. Interestingly, they've got Southampton next.
That is interesting, isn't it? Because Southampton have got to be due something at some point, right? So you just don't know. And also, it's going to be hard for them to prepare for that game because what we saw, Southampton didn't really give away too much because they were so terrible. So what good version is going to turn up when they got some tactics in them under a new manager?
The only good thing for United is they are at home. Liverpool, look, they're still 6 points clear of Arsenal. They've got a game in hand, so they could actually be 9 points clear. Because you'd presume that they will beat Everton, but you never know. It's got to be 2 points lost for them, hasn't it? I mean, I went for a 3-0 win. Brad went for a 5-1, and Wayne went for a 4-1. So we all thought United were going to get stuffed and Liverpool were going to walk this. Are Liverpool... Should if they are thinking about winning the Premier League, should they be thinking about stuffing Man United in this game?
Yeah, I think that there's a potential point there. I think Liverpool, there's been more noise off the pitch this week than has been on it, really, hasn't there? All this Trent Alexander-Arnold movement things and the Salah contract still rumbling away in the background. And they showed resilience again, Chris. So, I mean, Manchester United really, took a few sucker punches at them. It was a bit of a basketball game at times, this one. It was back and forth. And Liverpool, as soon as they conceded, they immediately got straight back on it. You could see the anger in themselves and the accountability for conceding. So while it wasn't the result that they probably want, the qualities are still kind of there. And I mean, this season in particular, we're not seeing a Man City doing a Man City, really, are we? And so I think, irrelevant, or if Liverpool do drop a few more points in this fashion, I still think they're going to win it, and I still think they'll probably win it comfortably. But I do agree with you, and they got to ensure they keep their eye on the ball a bit here and not get distracted by all this noise going on around them, because before you know it, it can encompass everything, can't it? And it can become very difficult because the press said it on Trent straight away as soon as he made a mistake. Is his mind elsewhere? Well,
I mean, we say this. Liverpool have still won more games than anybody else. They've lost less games than anybody else. Scored more goals. Got the biggest goal difference. Not looking too bad.
Yeah, they're the most consistent team in the league, and that's why they are where they are. There's inconsistencies among every team below Liverpool, but the consistent thing about Liverpool is they go 1-0 down. You guarantee they'll score. Yeah.
And the thing is, winning the league, this could be the point that wins them the league. And had they lost it, that could have been the 3 point, if you know what I mean, that cost them the league.
Absolutely, yeah. Interesting enough, from a tactical perspective on Manchester United, you mentioned Harry Maguire was up at the goal towards the end there, and obviously Martinez got their first goal. He was a centre back. He plays three at the back, and it reminds me of that Sheffield United system Wilder had, where one of the centre backs ends up going on a stroll and ends up becoming a centre forward, which is very hard to track and very hard to mark. So I found it interesting how he's getting into Manchester United that element of positive play, being brave and going, we've got you guys back as a free, so one of you can go forward, and they were rotating it. And that's what I thought was interesting, because that played a big part into their goal. So interesting, the tactics are starting to finally settle in a bit as well, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, I think had Maguire got that last goal, would have been even looking at even more false dreams, because...
Could you imagine the redemption arc they could have with that story? My word.
Yes. Yeah. Oh. And of course, he's staying. They've done his contract for the other season, so Maguire's staying one more season. Raul Jimenez scores late equaliser. Referee Darren Bond awards 3 penalties. Wow. This is our third game. This is our fan game. And we've got Teddy, and that's not his name, but it's at Teddy Nello on Twitter. He's a Fulham fan. I did say to him, "Man, one job, mate. You could have done us a favour," and he said it wasn't pretty. He did say that, but look, this is what he's got to say about the game.
Good afternoon. It's Monday, the 6th of January. It's Epiphany Day, and it's a day that I traditionally take down our Christmas tree and all the decorations around the house on the 12th day after Christmas. My name is Emilio Dinello. I'm a Fulham Football Club supporter. I've been a season ticket holder for over 30 years and a fan since 1980. So I'm showing my age at the moment, but yeah, you can find me on @TeddyNello, which is my private handle, or at the Fulham Pulse, which is my sort of newly established football podcast all about Fulham Football Club. So I want to reflect on Fulham's 2-2 draw with Ipswich yesterday at Craven Cottage. Look, I'm not complaining necessarily. It's 8 games unbeaten, of which 6 of those are draws. We're just a couple players short from converting those draws into wins and pushing up that table. We're at 8th or 9th at the moment. It's been a good season, 30 points on the table. I would have very much taken that before the season started. But what's disappointing is there's many games that we've dropped points late on. Yes, we've gained some points later on in the game, but if you look at the statistics, we're top of the table in the Premier League for dropping the most points from a winning position. If we can convert those opportunities into actual wins rather than draws, would be 2 or 3 places up the league, if not higher. So there's a lot to look forward to. We're a couple of players short, like I've said. We're slightly thin bare. We have a few injuries in the last few weeks, which is not unexpected when we've got a squad not very, very deep, but you rely on key players to make that difference for you. As far as the game was concerned yesterday, I think the manager got the setup slightly wrong. I predicted on Saturday that we should go back to a 4 in defence. He's stuck to playing in a back 5. He did that against Chelsea on Boxing Day, where we won 2-1. That was mainly to protect the midfield, where we've had a bit of a gap and we're lacking a key player in that position. So playing 5 at the back and pushing up those 2 fullbacks is probably the strategy which got us a win, admittedly. But then against Bournemouth last weekend, again, it was a 2-2 draw at home. Twice taking the lead, didn't close the game out. Same thing there. I don't think that the 5 at the back worked as efficiently and effectively as he would have liked. And similarly yesterday, first half against Ipswich, by far we were technically the better team, but we just struggled to break them down. We gifted them a goal midway through the first half, went in at half-time 1-0 down, and something had to change. And thankfully the manager recognised something needed to change. He compromised on the back 5, put on a more attacking player, and we were the better team in the second half. We deservedly got the equaliser, albeit from a penalty. I don't know how the referee didn't give that first time around. It was so obvious, so stonewall a penalty that it should have been given immediately, but it had to go to VAR. The referee saw it on the screen, reversed his decision, gave a penalty. But it's just a frustration. We'll talk about the referee in a moment. He was pretty poor, to be honest with you. But what was disappointing, though, and there's a new statistic, a new record that was created yesterday, is that within literally a minute or so after we'd just scored from that penalty, we conceded a penalty. But the referee gave that penalty immediately, even though it looked a little bit soft. So therefore, I think under the VAR rules, you can't reverse a decision unless it's significant. He's completely got it wrong. So whereas if he had gone to VAR first, that may have not been given. So anyway, they took the lead again from the penalty spot. And frustratingly, we were 2-1 down with about 20 minutes to go. So Marco Silva basically put all his attacking players on the pitch. We pressed and pushed and pushed. The weather conditions weren't great for both teams. It was driving rain. It was quite windy, quite mild as well. But overall, that would have suited Ipswich. But we pressed and pressed, and we got another penalty literally at 90 minutes, converted that 2-2. And you could argue there was a moment where there was a handball in the penalty area in added time as well. And on another day, had we not had 2 penalties, that possibly could have been a penalty and we may have won the game 3-2. But nonetheless, 2-2 was a fair result. I was disappointed we didn't, again, get weaker opposition. I'm not begrudging any of the teams in the bottom 3, bottom 6. We do tend to struggle against teams who sit back, defend in numbers, and we just struggle to break them down. In the first half, we were a little bit too passive, too slow. Second half, we upped the ante a little bit, but in all fairness, Ipswich did a good job defensively. But 2-2 is a fair result, but disappointing that there's 2 points that we could have gained. On paper, we're a better team technically. So we've got 30 points on the board after 20 games. Second half of the season is going to be difficult, but hopefully we'll have a couple acquisitions coming through that will add a bit more strength and depth to our squad. And I want to leave the last piece to the referee, Mr. Bond. Absolutely atrocious yesterday. And people who know me well know that I'm very grounded and very balanced in my opinion. I'm not biased towards Fulham. I'll give praise when it's due and I'll criticise when it's required as well. But overall, some of the decision making was appalling. First half, central midfielders winning the balls cleanly and fairly, giving decisions against us. Not giving Harry Wilson a Stonewall penalty straight off when he's only 10 yards away from it, looking straight at it. It's just embarrassing, really. So the FA, Premier League, sort your lives out, sort your act together. We've got to get better quality of refereeing. These are high stakes. Every point is, or every position in the table is what, £500,000, £1 million for a club, which is important for any club like Fulham, Leicester, and so forth. So overall, I want to call that out because it was just appalling and just it's not fit for purpose. Should not be refereeing in the Premier League. But nonetheless, it will start the new year. We've got the FA Cup to sort of distract us later this week. That will give us time to rest some of our players, rotate, and prepare ourselves for the next run of fixtures from middle of next week. So happy New Year to everybody and all the best. Take care.
Thank you to Emilio, like I say, at Teddy Nello, big Fulham fan, also a big Napoli fan, which is how I actually got to know him. Yeah, I saw you with your light.
Sorry.
That's all right. Don't worry, mate. Don't worry. Look, he wasn't happy with the referee, but let's talk Ipswich first of all. This is any point like it would be for Leicester. They're now third from bottom. They've got to be thinking we could actually do this.
Yeah, and Chris, they're just so positive, I mean, every time they go out there, they look like a team that's going to, create problems. And I said it earlier briefly, I just like the fact that they're not afraid to play a long ball forward if they have to. There's times they can play through you, and there's times they'll choose to. But they're also very disciplined at knowing, look, Sammy Smodic can get the ball up there. Liam Delap can pick a long ball forward and win a duel. And they do a lot of that, and a lot of their challenges, Chris, came from nowhere, aka they were penned in and they just pinged it up, and Delap would win a free kick or break the play up or win a penalty. So it's frustrating to see that with another club, and we could do with something like that now ourselves, really, because it's making all the difference for them. And that's why us and Southampton aren't as high up as they are.
Yes, yeah. Look, Fulham tore us a strip off when we played them in the second game. Very, very impressed. You could tell they're a team that have been together a while, and look, we said, well, I've said in the past, Silva doesn't impress me as a manager, but sometimes a manager needs to find the right club, Moyes, if you like, with West Ham. They were a good fit. And I think Silva is at Fulham. Okay, they're down to ninth at the moment, but they got 30 points. They've not lost in 5. Yes, they've only won one of those. The other 4 have been draws. But we'd kill for that form at the moment, wouldn't we? I've been very, very impressed with Fulham, and I was in that game when they tore us off the strip.
Yeah, it's annoying from a Leicester fan's perspective, isn't it? Because we're seeing all these clubs like Bournemouth, Brighton, Fulham, all take massive strides forward from a similar place we've all started from before, which is the Championship, because Fulham were bouncing between the two divisions for a while back there. But, they've made some great free transfer signings, a bit of experience here and there's come in, and they've just really they played to their strengths, Chris, which is what
Yes,
you've got to do. And also, I think, not trying to give it all to London, but being a London club, it does help attracting players, doesn't it? Like
yes,
Smith Rowe coming in is a hell of a signing for them, because
yes,
realistically, you should only be signing for a club in Europe, in my
yeah.
opinion, at least in Conference or Europa League. So credit to Fulham. Yeah, they're doing what they're doing very well. They might not make Europe, but even if they don't, as long as they retain silver, like we're saying, and they keep pushing on with another transfer window or two, who knows where they can go? They're doing really good stuff.
What you were saying then about Smith Rowe, I mean, it's the sort of player that we could have possibly attracted a few seasons ago. After, all right, maybe he wasn't available when we won the league, but sort of
Mm.
FA Cup winning era,
Yeah.
Europe 2 seasons winning, we could attract. We've just fallen so far off the radar. It is a
Mm.
worry, whether we'll get back or not. But no, but
And
but thanks to Teddy for that. As I say, Fulham could have done us a favour and beaten Ipswich, but at least they didn't let Ipswich get all 3 points.
yeah.
Oh, well, I don't know where to start with this. I mean, I
Oh
was
my word.
watching, I was watching Friends of the Channel Match Day Vlogs. It's the Southampton channel, and Mike he does live streams from the ground during the match, and he was the fourth goal. He was absolutely just. He was so deflated. It was like like when you got a blow up doll and you give her a love bite. He was just so deflated. People have told me. I don't know. A team that is bottom of the away form, has never won away all season. In fact, hasn't won away from home since May, which is virtually all this season, isn't it? Going to Southampton, new manager, you would hopefully get a bounce, and stuffing them for 5 at home. We are looking at Southampton as being preparing for the Championship, surely now, aren't we?
Yeah, and what was worrying about it, Chris, was you think you got a new manager in, and they seem to put in less effort than what they would do under Russell
Yeah.
Martin. They really look like, apart from maybe a 10-minute spell where they looked like they were trying to do something, they looked to have taken a 50% step backwards somehow, despite
Mm.
making what's meant to be a positive change. So yeah, it's very sad times at Southampton. They've just not quite got the adjustment right, into the Premier League. We could have been in a similar position if Enzo had stayed. Ironically, I wonder where we'd be. We
Mm.
could either be further up, or we could be in a similar position. We've tried to overplay and we've got ourselves in trouble. So it's hard for them to fix now. I think they're in big trouble. Brentford again, they're just superb. Ironically, though, it's their first win away since May, which is
Yeah.
something that caught me by surprise as a statistic, which shows you how good they are at home. But there's a lot to worry about for
We know
Southampton.
they're
I agree.
a good side,
Mm,
Brentford. Look what they did to us, tore us a strip.
mm,
That said, they started off very well. They're actually down to 11th now. That was the first win, though, in 5, 3 losses and a draw. Overall, in the form guide, they're in 12th. They seem to have gone off the boil a bit, but look, they've got a good manager in Thomas Frank. And I think whether it be Leicester, Brentford, Fulham, those sort of sized clubs will have a few good seasons and then have a season when maybe they just got to sort of get some players in and reset, if you like, and have another couple of good seasons. And good seasons for them is top half, let's be honest with you. But look, I think that says more about Southampton and their problems than it does about Brentford and what they can achieve, unfortunately.
yeah, I'd agree with that, mate, as well. And really, for Brentford, the next phase they're going to be facing is probably having to replace Bremo and Wissa, because both of them are going to attract interest the way they've been performing from a higher level football club. And that's the thing where it comes to being a Brentford or being a Leicester or being a Brighton, you've got to handle these transitions well. If you don't, you get it wrong, like we did with Tillemans and etc. Look what happens. You can end up being right
Yes.
back at square one in one season.
Yeah. Southampton are away to Manchester United, as we mentioned earlier. I should have said Ipswich have actually got Brighton coming up next in the
Oh,
Premier League. Um, they host Brighton. I could actually see Ipswich getting something there because Brighton again have gone off the boil a little bit. They had a good start to the season. Brentford, again, they're going to be safe. Nothing to worry about for them. But they host Manchester City. Brentford at home. If I was Manchester City, I wouldn't take that one for granted. And I think Tom has frozen. Hello, Tom. He did actually say that this might happen. Indeed, Ronald. Indeed, Tom has definitely frozen. So let's just remove Tom. I'm sure he will come back in a second. He did warn this might happen. He's not he's not had the odd gremlin here and there. He's had the whole bloody bunch of gremlins. And I think he's back.
Sorry, I'm here. My apologies. Oh my word! I thought I got away with this today, mate, but the gremlins you've had was spreading.
You were doing very well.
Mate, dead on the hour mark as well. I thought it was going to happen. It will happen then. So that's interesting. But anyway, we learned something. My apologies to the audience. Sorry about that.
Don't worry. Brighton, the team we were just talking about then, hosting Arsenal. Brighton, like I say, haven't won in 5 games, but they have drawn the last 4. Arsenal, in fairness, they haven't lost in 5. They've got exactly the same record as Liverpool, which was drawn, won, drawn. Problem is for Arsenal, and I had them down to win the damn thing this season. I had Liverpool only coming about 4th because of the post-Klopp effect. Arsenal will be looking at this, and these are the games that are going to cost Arsenal the title.
Yeah, it's funny because the press hasn't made much of a noise about this, but this was my angle about this game, Chris, as well, is that really it's a game that Arsenal need to be winning, and they're still in that cycle and not getting these 3 points where they need to. There's times in this game they explicitly overplayed in the transition and they lost chances where they would win the ball in a high press and they weren't being decisive or quick enough to take the chances. I would also say the referee wasn't particularly on their side in this game either. There's a penalty I think they should have had for Gabriel, which wasn't given, which was given in other games around the country this weekend. So the irony is quite funny there. And Arsenal fans do feel a bit picked on at times by officials, I think, especially with VAR decisions that cost them points in previous years against big clubs, So, yeah, I think it's frustrating from them. And really, they allow Brighton back into it because early on, once again, Arsenal could have probably pushed on from the 1-0 early lead they had, Chris, and they probably should have done more with it. But they just weren't decisive enough. They lack that Salah, they lack that player just to be the one who's going to be the cutting edge into that goal. And if they can find him, I said Cunha would be superb for them. And ironically, it turned up in the press this week that Arsenal were looking at Cunha of Wolves. Someone just to be that cutting edge, basically, to get forward. That's really what they lack here.
Do you think? Look, it's early yet. Anything can happen. But like I said, 6 points behind Liverpool. But Liverpool do have that game in hand because of the cancelled Everton game. And of course, Forest have, but they will have kicked off now, I think. Can you see Arsenal overtaking Liverpool?
No, I can't, I'm afraid. No. I think even if Liverpool got on a bad run now, I don't think Arsenal have got a good enough run in them against the general opposition of the Premier League to do it. And I think this is probably why they've not been able to do it. And it's annoying, I think, in some ways, because I kind of want Arsenal to be competition up there because it'll make it more interesting for the neutral. And they're just so close. But every year they're hitting the same ceiling and they're just not changing anything. It must be so frustrating. It must be like, I don't know, being married and going home and having the same argument for 2 or 3 years, and you're just literally never getting anywhere. And you just go, well, what is the point in this? I
didn't know where you were going with that one, Tom. I'm going to be honest with you.
No, you got to be careful when you do these things. It's the improv comedian in me, mate. Sometimes I end up digging holes that take me all the way to Australia.
I think you're going to say you're going home every night and finding the same woman there. I thought that was the idea.
Mate, I got the best way. I argue with myself against the mirror or the wall, and I normally give myself the worst answer possible anyway, let alone anyone else. So
argue with yourself and you never win. That's the thing. It's 0-0, 4 minutes gone, by the way, in Wolves Forest.
You can clip this. Come on, Forest.
Yeah, come on. Oh, yes.
Did it go in?
Just as you say that, Gibbs White, 7 minutes on the clock. Gibbs White scores. Wolves 0, Nottingham Forest 1.
A magical curse of the commentator. Look at that. I should be a commentator.
Well,
Tell the BBC.
Funny thing was on the watch along for Leicester, Jim came on at half time, and I didn't get a break at half time. So I said, "Look, guys, I really need to go for a pee. I'm going to have to go. Just put it on, video up." And that's when we scored.
Oh no!
Difficult. I came back just in time for the replays. Look, we talked Lopetegui at the top of the show. Look, Manchester City, under normal circumstances, you probably wouldn't read too much into this. But if I was a West Ham fan, I'd be looking at this and saying, bloody hell, City only managed to put 2 past Leicester. How did they put 4 past us? They are in big trouble. The fans are just not buying into Lopetegui at all. Floppy Loppy. Surely his days are numbered. Was it yourself that said maybe next time we do this, there'll be another manager in charge there?
I think so, mate. I mean, it's funny because 4-1 actually isn't really a scoreline that really gives an illustration of what happened in the game, because West Ham weren't as bad as a 4-1, but it still is a 4-1 loss irrelevant of that, isn't it? And that's the thing. I mean, if you compare it to our game against Man City, in some ways we had a better showing because we didn't have the defensive lapses these guys did, which was a massive difference, and you can't give Erling Haaland, an inch, he'll take a yard, won't he? I mean, and that's exactly what happened today. So, well, not today, on Saturday, goodness me, I've lost it there, but so it's disappointing. I think they'll have to make a change because, the problem is that the trapdoor is still right behind you and there's still clubs behind you making progress. So they're going to have to do something. There's only so many times you could say, well, there's signs of it. Kudus is playing all right, and now they've lost Jared Bowen as well for a long time, which is a big loss for them, Chris. So I think they're going to have to make a change. Moyes was in the stand, ironically, wasn't he?
Was he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, which was interesting, but I don't know what he was there for. Probably just watching.
Well, and he's at Manchester, not at West Ham. So that's he's not going to go back for a third time, or is he? He said he doesn't want a relegation strap, but would he take it? I don't think he'll take anything before the end of the season, to be honest with you. But no, under normal circumstances, I mean, look, it can be 2-1 up until the 90th minute, and then you're trying to go and get the equaliser, and they can pop a couple in, and it can end up 4-1. That is, you can understand that, but not on top of everything else that's been going on. If this was a one-off.
They're still too soft at the back. So, you can't be conceding this many goals, Chris, relevant to who it is, so, this is their problem. I mean, but like I say, the performance actually, ironically, is probably one of the better ones they've put in. It's a funny thing, football, isn't it? Because they had chances, Kudus looked lively, but on this day, Haaland and Savinho had a superb game themselves. And, there you go. That's the way it goes.
Excuse me, a bit of coffee went down the wrong way. Paul, nice word. Thank you very much, sir. It does mean a lot to us when we see comments like that. I mean, Man City next have got Brentford, away to Brentford, which we just said. West Ham, these obviously. I know next they've got the cup games. These are the next league games. West Ham are going to be up against Fulham. They're at home to Fulham.
That's a big game for West Ham. That'll probably be the game, Chris. If they don't win that, a draw's not going to do it now. Probably they need to win. So.
But it is a winnable game for them. That, do you know what I mean? And
I think
the problem is, if you West Ham, you look at 23 points, which is where they are, and you think, we're well clear of the 16th. We're 7 points clear. But then suddenly you're not getting the results. And the other teams, like we say, start to catch you up.
Yeah.
Tottenham 1, Newcastle United 2. Oh, my God. Every division should have a Spurs. Down to 12th now. This was the season that Anne said he always wins something in the second season when at a club. Not anymore. It doesn't look like you're going to Ange. We touched on them before. They've only got one more point than Man United and West Ham. They've only won one in the last 5. They've won, lost, drawn, lost. They are not necessarily in trouble because, again, I don't think they're going to go down. But they've got problems, haven't they?
They do, but I mean, ultimately, is it still not a failure if Man United and Tottenham don't get into European places, which is the way that it's shaping up right now? I think for them that's as bad as relegation in theory, because that's extra money for them, Chris. Which they need to be able to compete in their top 6 bubble. Without that money, then someone else is getting it, like Brighton, which makes it more difficult for them. So I think it's a difficult time for Tottenham. What's interesting about it is they've got a hell of a lot of injuries. And then I look at the style of football they're playing, and it's very intense, very gegenpress, very on the front foot. And they seem to be breaking down, and they seem to be also not being able to fully, put that across in the right way. When you're Celtic and you're dominating a league, you can play this way, and you'll batter everyone every day of the week, won't you? And you've got a lot more numbers. I think in some ways, Ange is a part of the problem, because if you have a medical staff there that are in place to allow the players to play this way, I think, see as many injuries as they've had. And I think this is something which might not be talked about, because it's normally like injuries are bad luck. But you've got to at some point go and put 2 and 2 together and go, well, they're playing a certain style of way. And they're getting injuries, and then they're losing games. So he's gotten out in some ways, but then I also think, is he not taking accountability for that side of it? And in which case, is it a lost resort, Chris? Are we going to be talking about in 2 weeks he'll be the next one gone as well?
To be honest, it wouldn't surprise me, because when you look at Tottenham, when they're sat where they are, you've got, and they are 17th in the form table, over the last 6 games. I just don't think that a club. I mean, I don't take this. Oh, we've got injuries. So you're Tottenham.
Yeah.
I will take injuries. I will take that excuse from West Ham. I will take that excuse from Everton, even Brighton, Bournemouth, Leicester, Southampton, Ipswich. Not the big 6. I'm sorry. You want to be the big 6. You've got a squad there. You should be able to take player A out and put player A1 in, and he should be as good.
It's part of management now. It's part of management now. It's sports science, Chris. It's a part of being a head coach, isn't it? You do not play a system which is going to leave players injured. You're going to balance it all with your physios. And if there's a disconnect there in the manager, it will end up falling on the manager, won't it?
Yeah. Newcastle unbeaten in 5, top of the form table, just above tonight's team, Nottingham Forest, who will probably go, based on the last 5, they've both got 15 points. Wasn't so long ago we were talking. In fact, it was our that was my James Bond. What was it called? Impersonation.
Oh God.
We were talking on the last one, which was, I think Newcastle had just beaten us. That was the last show that we did.
Yeah.
Up to that game, Newcastle had been on a dreadful run. And they'd lost to Brentford. Then they went and beat us, Ipswich, Villa, Manchester. Is that City or United? I can't remember which one they
beat United.
Yeah. And then obviously this one against Tottenham. You'd say Manchester City and Tottenham, good wins. Aston Villa, it was 3-0, so it ended up being a decent win for them against a team that probably should have done better. But Ipswich and Leicester, the teams that are down the bottom, should have maybe put more fight up, but they won both of those 4-0. Suddenly, Eddie Howe is saying, what was the panic, guys?
Well, that's it, exactly. They went through that injury phase as well at that point, didn't they, a little bit? Yeah, and I mean, they haven't got a lot of depth, Newcastle, ironically. They've got less than Tottenham, which is what makes me laugh. But they're not obviously doing what Tottenham are doing, are going full heavy into it, I think they're doing very well, mate. They're very well put together. He's managing them in the same way he would manage a Bournemouth, ironically. They're not deep with players going down to the reserves, and it's something they've got to look at going forward. So I think then these games they have dropped to people like Brentford would probably stop happening. And that's what got them in the Champions Champions League in the first place when they had a free run without any of these problems. But having Barnes back, Tonali back, Isaac's looking a bit more fresher after I nearly gave him a bad reward a few weeks ago as well. We had him up for the EPL
He
Awards.
obviously was watching and thinking, God, I can't let that happen again.
I was going to say, I put it in the ether like I did that blooming Wolves goal a minute ago. Sorry, the Forest goal. Yeah, so, anyway. But yeah, so no, I think good steps for Newcastle, and they're looking strong and resilient, and I think we no doubt help them by boosting their confidence.
Yeah, indeed. Interestingly, Newcastle's next game, and they're actually sat in 5th, so they're now back up into the Europa League places. When everybody was moaning about them not getting Championship football, European football. Next up, they are they at home or away? They are home to Wolverhampton Wanderers.
That's some interesting games coming up next, isn't there? Because the way it's all aligning with certain teams' forms and certain teams being out of form but being higher in the table, this is why we're seeing such a table change over Christmas, mate. It's why it's such an important period, just when you get to January.
And if you think that's good, guess what game you're going to be watching in 2 weeks' time?
Oh, my word, mate. Yeah.
Tottenham are away to Arsenal.
Oh, yes, we got to have one of these. This will be fun, won't it? Come on, free scoring. Let's see it.
Yes, that could. I mean, again, which way it probably should go, but it is a London derby.
It's a sort of game that could save a lot for Ange if he pulls one out of nowhere, but he might have to by that point, Chris.
Yeah. Before anybody says, I know I've got the wrong badge up there, but look, the day I'm having today, you're surprised I've got any badges up there at all. It's not Brentford. They're not that good that they can play 2 games in the same weekend. That's Bournemouth beating Everton 1-0. It took the time. Look, Bournemouth up to 7th. They are literally 1 point behind Man City. They've only lost 5 games. They're 1 place off a Conference League qualification place. We beat them, but then again, obviously beating them isn't for everybody, but they've had some good wins, Bournemouth. Next game is Chelsea away. Not lost in 5, drawn 3-1-2, including this one. Everton, like we said before, Sean Dyche's future is being discussed, allegedly. They've not won in 5. They had 3 draws, which was Arsenal 0-0, Chelsea 0-0, Man City 1-1. 3 big games there that they managed to get something from, but you can't survive on just draws only, can you?
No, you can't. I mean, and they turned up and, took the draws they could. I mean, credit to Bournemouth. It shows how well they've been this season, because it was exactly the same game for Everton. They've been getting points off Arsenal and, these clubs against. And then they go and beat them and they just work them down in the end. So fair play to them. Everton's problem is that it's all well and good, Chris, picking up points until the table behind you starts getting over your shoulder a bit too close. And that's where they are right now. I think they would have stuck with this, actually, with no problems, just trying to get the club over the line to the end of the season for FFP, get into the new ground. But I think now it's not really as solid as it was a month ago that they're going to be, not in this relegation scrap. I think before then they might have snuck forward perhaps. And Dyche is coming out and saying that, he hasn't got quality to attack and all the rest of it. And but then he's not setting them up in a way to help them either. And I think it might catch him up a little bit in a minute. You're right.
Yeah. The last game, Palace 1, Chelsea 1. Chelsea, who sneaked up to 3rd. In fact, they're only down to 4th now, so let's not say they're having a panic. But suddenly won 1 of the last 5. As we said, Bournemouth is their next game. They're playing Palace, and Palace are in 15th place. They've won 2 of the last 5. Their next game is away to a certain East Midlands team that play in blue, which will be very interesting.
And it's not Coventry.
No. Look, let's not press the panic button too soon for Chelsea, but that's a good point for Palace, isn't it?
Yeah, and Palace, since the players have come back like Eze, they've really knuckled down. And I mean, you don't want to play at Selhurst Park. I mean, half of this was down to the fans, Chris, because they were in the game at 1-0 down and still fighting, and the fans really provided that extra man push for them as well. And they're believing in it. I mean, this is what gets me about Leicester in comparison to the Ipswiches and the Crystal Palaces. For everything we think, that we've got, these teams are turning up and being authentic every week and owning it, and they're getting the just results. And Chelsea are going through this funny phase now, like Enzo did at Leicester, aren't they? Whereas all of a sudden just kind of hit a bit of a halt. The goals have stopped becoming so free scoring, and they're starting to make things a bit more difficult for themselves. But I imagine in a minute, Chris, they'll turn the corner and they'll comfortably be in the top four, and they might still be an outside title race. You don't know.
I don't think they're quite ready for the title race yet.
Um,
I do think that they will be Europe. I don't know again whether it will be Champions League or they might just fall at the last hurdle. They'll be somewhere in Europe. I mean, they're in the conference, I think, this year, aren't they? So it could be that again. Who knows?
But I imagine they'll win the Conference League probably. So
yes, and look,
they'll be in Europa League minimum.
It's a trophy at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah. And they put the reserves out and they'll still beat half the Kazakhstani teams. So
yes. Now there's the table. Not looking too good for us. No. I think everybody from Manchester United down has got to be looking over the shoulders. I think for me, Tottenham they've got enough in the tank. I think if I look at Tottenham and Man United, I think Tottenham are the better team. They're more settled. Obviously, the manager's been there longer. West Ham possibly changing the managers. Palace, I don't think will now. You got to say in 5 points ahead of the the bottom three at this stage of the game. But I mean, looking at that, Southampton doomed, aren't they?
Yeah, Southampton are looking pretty doomed now, and it's difficult because then you look above us and you just, I mean, I think you can, in theory, points-wise, it sounds crazy, still look down from Brentford, just in case Brentford end up messing up their home record, because away from home they're not doing too much. But it is going to take a dramatic swing, and including a lot of clubs like Ipswich and Leicester winning 2 or 3 back-to-back games in order to make it happen. But it is very much at the bottom, Chris, looking like it's going to be, I think, Everton down now. So there's probably 1 or 2 places we're fighting for, and Wolves, I think, are going to go higher yet.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think Leicester's. I don't think we're going to have the same problem that we had last time we got relegated, in that we weren't expecting it.
No, I must be honest.
I think we're down.
I would take us going to the last day with a chance of staying up. And I know it sounds a bit pessimistic, but as long as we got hope, that's all we can ask for, I think, because it is looking pretty hopeless. I hate to admit it.
Great escape too.
Well, I mean, this is what we were talking about with Ipswich is signing Godfrey. We need to go and do what Ipswich are doing and go and sign a couple of Premier League ready players from somewhere, mate. And if we can do that, I don't know. Then all of a sudden, and it's a funny thing. It's so nuanced football. 1 or 2 things, and you don't know. A week down the line, we could be talking differently. We've always said it.
Yeah. Geordie, welcome back, mate. Hope you are well. Hope you understood why I did what I did in the watch along. How you doing? And he said, this Forest side is really serious. Look, they have. And I didn't think they did. I didn't think they would do as well as I had them finishing bottom. So, but then again, so did Jamie Carragher. So look,
I'm pretty sure I had them bottom as well, Chris. So don't you worry. I'm pretty sure I put them bottom as well.
But Nuno, like you say, sometimes these managers go in and they just click. Saints can beat Derby's lowest points record. They're actually behind them at this point.
I think
stage of the game, I think Derby had 7 points.
I'll make a crazy Tom prediction. I think they'll change managers again before the end of the season. I think he'll be gone in February.
Possibly. It didn't look.
It doesn't look good.
I don't know where I heard it or whether I read it. I think I heard it, but they were saying that under Russell Martin, at least you could see there was a game plan.
Yes,
at least,
exactly.
When the players went out, they said, looking at the team under whatever he's called, I don't even know what his name is. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing there. But anyway, we've come to the tits and bum part of the show.
We have.
Are you ready for the new graphics?
Oh my word, I've not even seen these, so I apologise in advance, everyone, for what he's been up to.
Look, trust me. I mean, look, after the Pixies, could it be any worse?
Oh, I don't know. Ask Brad about that one, mate.
This is Tom's Awards.
Oh my goodness me. Oh wow. I look good in bronze, actually. I look good.
do.
Actually, that should be the award. I'll get that made. So I need that picture.
That is what came up when I put your face into an Oscar.
Oh
That is actually
wow.
an Oscar. So apparently,
Amazing. I mean, I've never looked better. That's scary.
No, it's amazing what AI can do for you. Going to AI, I'm sort of Brad Pitt's older brother. But
It's funny, Chris. When I look at the shoulders, I look across at the Leicester shirt you're wearing tonight. It's like you're the twin. It's like you're sort of like it's sort of like you're the Razzie Award to the Oscar.
yes.
So you can be the ass award picture, mate.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. But you've shaved your beard there, but that is definitely you. That is definitely you.
Yeah.
So basically, Tits and Ass, Tom's Impressive Trophy or something it was called. We're going to change that. We're going to do Tom's Top Award. There we go. And thank God that stick was long that you're holding and just covers up your.
Goodness me, yes. Is that an AI picture? My word, AI's got some interesting things about humans, haven't they? You wait till they start having relationships with us in those robot things, mate. They have no idea what to expect.
No. But yeah, I absolutely. When the first one came up, and I was like, let me just press another button, and that came up, and I just went, yes.
Hey, I'll take it. I'm not dissing it. It's fantastic. No. Would you like your 3 nominations, Chris?
Yes. Tell everybody what the Tom's Top Award is.
Yeah, so what we do is every week we go through, obviously, all the games here on Monday. I then look through and break down and find 3 nominations, be it a club, a manager, anything to do with football that weekend. And I put forward a Star of the Week award. And so this week we're going to have nominations for this. And we also do an Ass award, which we'll get to in a minute, where we have 3 Ass nominations as well. So for the Star nominations this week, Chris, because obviously I'd like to get your feedback on what you think as well. We've got 2 shout-outs before we do that for managers, McKenna and Amarin. 2-2 draws, 2 Desmonds, but a great result for both clubs again, and honestly a good positive weekend for them. I've gone for players for stars this week. I've specifically gone for that. The first nomination we've got is for Savinho of Manchester City, who, as you are aware, set up, assisted 3 of the goals for their win against West Ham and really stepped into a position I think they've struggled in the last few weeks because they've had problems in the central midfield. I think they've needed to make sure they're scoring the goals, and Haaland finally looks like he's starting to merge well with Savinho, and that's a danger for the rest of the Premier League. So credit to him. He's the first nomination. The second, we're going to go for Martinez of Manchester United, the centre-back, because I liked the way he was in the game. I thought he was very progressive. He wasn't afraid to make mistakes. And the way he talked in the match afterwards in the conference, I really liked, because he was very honest and very truthful about what he felt was wrong with the club. And I'd always kind of viewed him as a bit of a, with all due respect, a bit of a Vinnie Jones style character, but a bit sort of low vibration with it. He'd sort of nick at you and bite at you. And I thought it was very interesting just to see that side of him, and I thought he showed on the pitch as well, and he put in a very good performance as a result, so he deserves a nomination. And the third one, we're going to go for Liam Delap of Ipswich Town, who has been superb leading the line for them. If you think he's coming, I think he's on loan or they've signed him, but obviously Man City are now going back and going, oh, maybe we want to re-sign this guy back, because they've obviously let people like Palmer go. Sancho obviously was Manchester City at some point, had a great game for Chelsea this weekend. So Delap is another one we're going to nominate, because he's obviously getting a lot of eyes on him, and he's made such a difference to Ipswich, because they'd be down with Southampton without his efforts, Chris. So Delap, Martinez, Savinho, who do you think?
Well, I would have actually gone for McKenna had he been included in there, because I think he's doing a good job, because we expected Ipswich to be where Southampton are, let's be honest with you, and they're not. And no matter how bad a season they have, they're not going to get rid of McKenna. But he wasn't included in your 3. What I would say about your first 2, Savinho and Martinez, is that with the clubs they play for, it's not a surprise that they are doing a good game. You would expect it of them, because they are 60, 70 million pound players compared to, other clubs 10, 20. So for that reason, because of the result as well. I would personally, not saying that you would, but I would personally give it to Delap.
Interesting, because the interesting thing you've hit there, Chris, and you're right about, is I did debate whether McKenna gets the nomination instead of Delap, because a lot of it goes back to him. But my feeling was, because McKenna is probably going to get nominated again the way it's going, we'll pass it on to a player. So I can confirm you are correct. The winner this week is Liam Delap. So well done to Liam Delap.
Well done to Liam Delap. Yes.
And unfortunately for the rest of the Premier League, you might end up at Man City in a minute.
Yes, yeah. Are you keeping a note of these? And then at the end of the season, we should do a overall award.
Yes. I've got them all written down every week, all the nominations and the winners, Chris. All right. So at the
You
end of the
are
season.
organised. A man after my own OCD.
Absolutely.
Right. Going the other way, Tom's Bottom Award. Now, this is going to be interesting. We're looking at three players, managers, anything to do with football that's made basically a total ass of themselves this week.
Yes, that's right, Chris. We've got 3 nominations again, and this time we haven't got 3 players like we had together in the first one. We've got 3 different things. Right, so let's start. The first one is going to be Southampton's entire starting 11 in that game against Brentford, because the effort they put in, Chris, collectively, apart from 10 minutes, was 50% down on the effort they put in for Russell Martin. And you'd at least expect to see a 50% increase on that, potentially. And I just felt as if they didn't give their manager a really good, welcome to the home fans either. It was not good at all. It looked like a group of players that didn't really want to be there. There was famously a video going around on social media about one woman in the crowd who predicted they were going to lose 5-0 at home because she had no idea about football, and her son was a Southampton fan. They had to give away the match shirt to her, rather embarrassingly, because she predicted the right score. And of course, she goes up to get it all happy, but they've just lost 5-0. So anyway, I think that sums up why they can have an Ass of the Week nomination here. We're also going to chuck one out here for James Justin, I'm afraid. I kind of feel bad for jumping on him, so we'll see what the result is in a minute. But recently, the performances at Leicester, we've not had the opportunity to make these 1 or 2 mistakes. Unfortunately, he has been the guy making. It's not been Danny Ward, no matter how much we like it to be sometimes. It's been James Justin, and it's cost us a few points. So I'm going to put him up for the nomination. And the third choice is going to be Sean Dyche of Everton. And he's had a bit of a free pass so far, because ultimately I've gone with the angle of he's nicking these points. He's making Everton difficult to beat against certain clubs. But there comes a time now, and the world is telling him that that is not going to be enough. And I don't think the way he handled it in the post-match, by saying that he didn't really have the quality there to attack, when you have got people like Calvert-Lewin, who scored 20 goals the season Ancelotti was there, just by playing a different style of football. I thought that was a little bit weak of him, really. And I do wonder if he deserves, a little bit of a nomination this week just for that alone. The fact is, he's sort of hiding behind it now a bit. But anyway, so we've got James Justin, the Southampton first 11, or we've got the manager of Everton, Sean Dyche, Chris.
This is a hard one.
This is hard. They're all different things we're aiming for as well.
Yeah, no, but it's good. It's good. I love it. Absolutely love the choice. Let's get the elephant in the room out the way first. James Justin.
It breaks my heart doing it.
It does, and I can see where you are totally coming from, because he is costing us goals, which are costing us points. I mean, if you're 4-0 up and he makes a mistake and it's 4-1,
doesn't matter.
To forget it. I'm going to go way back. Funny enough, to the last season in the Championship, he was injured, and I went to watch Southampton away. Leicester play Southampton away. It was his first game back, and he was on the right.
Yeah.
And I did not like him on the right. And I thought, okay, maybe because it's his first game back from injury, give him a little bit of a pass on that one. If you look at his CV, it says he can play left or right back.
Yeah.
But although he's right-footed, he actually plays better as a left back. Now, yes, that means we would have to sacrifice Christensen or Thomas. And Thomas had a good game. I have to say, I actually gave him an award, sort of deserves a mention award for that performance.
He was okay. He was fine. Yeah. He was fine.
In fact, I gave him my man of the match.
But I see what you're saying. You're leaning towards because he's out of position, and I think that's a good angle. Because he's out of position and he's doing us a favour. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, it's not his choice. He can go to the manager and go, look, mate, I'm struggling. Will you please? I'm not good on this side. He goes, look, I need you on the right. Personally, I think he should have some time out to give him a rest. And I think we should be playing Christian and Chowdhury. I never thought I'd say that. That's my thoughts with Justin. With Dyche, look, he's lucky. I think he's got away with the fact that Everton are in such a shit state that he can get away with saying, well, I'm just keeping us up. I'm just keeping us up. He has been there how long now?
Oh, a long time.
He was there when the previous owners were splashing the cash. So he couldn't have gone and bought players. He let Tom Cannon go from Everton.
Yeah.
And look what he's doing now. They probably love him. Like you said, they've got Calvert-Lewin, who at one point, was he on the verge of the England squad? He was knocking the goals in. And, we've said before about how a manager can just ruin a player's career. I think he's been very, very lucky that he was at Everton. Now, the problem is you've now got these new owners coming in who have got a bit of nous about them.
Yeah.
You've got a brand new stadium. I mean, wouldn't it just be so Leicester-like if they're moving to the new stadium in the Championship?
I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted to bring it up earlier. It would be my only bit of hope for Leicester would be history.
Yes, yeah. It would be, it would be a joke. So I think I can understand again why you've brought him up. I think he's very close. Now, with the Southampton 11, they do look a shambles.
Yeah.
Now, there's a very thin line between a manager being stubborn and sticking with his principles to a manager not being flexible. That is a very thin line. Rodgers was very much the former, not the latter. Couldn't make those changes. You said it earlier about Enzo. Would Enzo be? Where would Leicester be with Enzo? He gets away with it because he's got better quality players at Chelsea than he has at Leicester.
Absolutely.
I think we could be where Southampton were. And that's what Russell Martin... Fair play to him. Look, he had his belief, but it just wasn't coming off. Maybe they should have stuck with him, gone down, and then come back up with him as well. And who knows? And then maybe look. I don't know. But, the manager once... I don't know, it might have been Steve Leinick said, or Julian Watts, ex-players that I speak to, that when you cross that white line as a manager, you don't really have an awful lot of say because you're relying on now. You can after they've done something, you can be shouting at them and why weren't you there and get in there and get in there. But once you cross that white line, a lot of it is on the players.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah.
Now, look, we saw that performance against Brentford for Southampton was like our performance against Brentford after we'd sacked Cooper.
It was.
Like, what are you trying to show this new manager? Now, this new manager, I've no idea who he is. I mean, I was looking at him thinking, who are you? It looks like somebody from the IT department that's come up to fix the pitch side monitor. Yeah. So it's a good shout for all three. And I'm sorry, I've taken longer to talk about it than you did.
Fine. No, this is the point. Engagement.
I am... It is a difficult one. You've put me in very difficult positions.
All for different things as well, mate, which is why I like it. Yeah, it's priorities, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Because of the reasons I've said, I'm going to have to go, for me, Southampton.
And that's great, because I'll confirm with you, Southampton was my choice. I'm not just saying it. Dyche came a very close second for me, and I felt bad doing it to James Justin for the reasons said. But to be honest, it was a weekend where I was looking around. I was finding it difficult this week. Normally I spot all these things, but this week I found it difficult to find proper bad things. I even had Justin Trudeau down there for today, but I thought I'd better not because it gets a bit political, doesn't it?
I don't know. That's gone boom like that because I'm not seeing the news today.
Well, the Prime Minister of Canada resigned today, mate. So So there we go. But anyway, I agree with you. Southampton are going to win this one. It might end up being one of those awards we give to the manager in a couple of weeks' time, depending on what we see next. But for now, Southampton 11, terrible work. You've got to work harder, guys.
Yes, indeed. Well, we've agreed too much there, haven't we? But I'm glad to
next
say
week I'll make it harder.
Yeah, we are a Leicester channel, but we don't shy away from saying Leicester is shit when they're shit and calling out players, when they need it. That's why I went for Thomas as my man of the match, because he was pilloried on the chat and everything before we went live, and he just he put in a decent performance. He was no worse than anybody else, and I think he deserved some credit. But there we go, mate. No show next week because, like I say, we are at it is an FA Cup weekend, so we will be back in 2 weeks' time.
That's good. It gives me more time to work on my IT, Chris, so make sure my lights aren't doing weird things and make sure my internet's not kicking me out on an hour mark. I
may be back to you before then. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully, mate. I want to be. Yeah, once this is all sorted, mate, you'll see me a lot more, guys, if you want to see me. All right.
Yeah. Hello and goodbye, Prashant. He's in late. Just remember this is what you're seeing, guys. One day he may actually turn up like that on the show. Who knows?
I have to find a gym first, mate.
Exactly. Mate, thank you very much, sir. I'll see you, if not before, in 2 weeks' time. Happy New Year. And as always, thank you so much for your input.
Cheers. Thank you, everyone. Cheers, guys. See you soon. Bye.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you very much there to Tom. Brilliant. He's brilliant on this show. He really, really is. Look, do us a favour. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. It does help us. Please do also smash the likes. Both of those things are free. And if you want to, you can subscribe and become a member. I've actually been asked on a YouTube partnership program to learn more about membership. So I'm going to have a think about that and see if that's something I want to do. But I will see you at 2 o'clock. I will see you at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. I'll be joined by Craig. I'll be joined by Kate. We will be talking Jamie Vardy. Is he past it? Interesting. We'll see you then. Thanks very much, everybody. Take care, guys. Thanks to Scott for modding, and I'll see you tomorrow at 7. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.